Hey folks, Dominique here. Today we're going to be talking about a sensitive subject. There happens to be a creator out there by the name of Lillee Jean who allegedly has faked her entire online persona. There have been a lot of people who have talked about that aspect of this particular subject. So with my interview today, the subject of that being the Butter Holt, check her out on YouTube, another content creator of color who has discussed this subject, and I think you'd like her views. We are actually going to be talking about some of the more problematic undertones of the situation surrounding Lillee Jean. And that happens to be the fact that she has done and said some really racist things. And she has launched what appear to be campaigns of hate and targeting alongside her mother, I might add, and even doxed content creators of color, particularly those who respectfully disagree with her. We're going to talk about that today, not because it's a fun, gossipy topic to talk about, but because this is a subject that needs to be discussed, and I believe that it needs to be discussed by creators of color and by white content creators as well. I hope you guys enjoy our discussion. When you're actively starting to come out and hurt other people and specifically prey on people who aren't white and privileged, then that is a huge problem.
It was not that she faked going to the Met Gala. It was more he did all these things while also being racist.
I'm like, oh, good God.
I had time off work. My job was not implementing any pandemic precautions.
Ooh.
So I took a couple unpaid months off work until they got that fixed. I was spending a lot of time on YouTube trying to pass the time, and I watched a video by a YouTuber named Premik about online personality Lillee Jean. The thing that caught my attention the most was not the fact that she allegedly faked a 1 billion person following on Instagram. It was not that she faked going to the Met Gala. It was more he did all these things while also being racist.
Oh, yeah. Casually, Black people don't have to worry about slavery at all. It's fine. I'm like, oh, good God.
Once I kind of knew about her, I just had the time and started researching. And then when I say researching, I mean I just watched more videos. Her racism just kept coming up. And I felt that a lot of people were not really talking about that as much as I thought they should.
Yes.
So it basically became something of an interest to me where there was this drama-related topic of this girl faking her online life.
Right.
But there was also a lot of racism involved, and no one was diving into that to the degree that I felt they should. So I ended up making a YouTube channel so I could talk about those things that I felt weren't being covered enough. This was in May 2020. I made a couple of videos specifically going into detail about how Lillee Jean and her mother, Laura Truman, were doing and saying things that were very clearly racist.
Yes.
They were not acknowledging it or admitting to it or addressing these problems. And they found my channel because they seem to be very interested in looking to see who's talking about them.
They really do.
Seriously, it's a running theme whenever there's a new creator who makes a video about Lillee Jean. A little comment saying, hey, just so you know, be careful. They will come after you at some point. Right. They don't want any criticism whatsoever.
I believe they did come after Premik because that's how I found out about the topic originally. I'm a mixed ethnicity. We have had to deal with a lot of racism where I live and where my family comes from. And I don't, even with my light skin privilege that I have to acknowledge I do have that. I notice the casual use of racism a lot more because some people just assume that I'm white and go ahead and just act however they want to act in front of me. So that's kind of the vibe I got from Lillee and her mother, Laura. They just very casually and comfortably are very throwing out racist language. It's interesting to me that their alleged fake Instagram followers have the same exact language use. Really interesting to me. Like, are those really two different people? Like, you really expect me to believe that those are two different people? Really? You're not the person behind the computer there, Lillee or Laur?
That is so real. It's when people look into these two women, they will very quickly learn that they have some eccentricities when they speak. It is so strange. When I make these videos, I do a lot of research. Now, I'm not making random accusations or
No,
claims.
and nobody is. How do these women think that these are random claims? They can all be backed up.
Yes, exactly. Like you said, the language that these alleged stock accounts based on racial stereotypes, and if you're using the same language, it's very clear that these white women are behind these accounts. But they, to this day, have never acknowledged that they run these accounts. They will never made any statements, to my knowledge, that they were behind these accounts.
Okay, they don't have to, right? They have the right to be shady as fuck if they want to be shady as fuck, in my opinion, but don't expect people not to call you out on it. You don't want to admit to it? Okay, fine, you can be shady, but people will call you out on it. And I'm not understanding how it is that they're able to like disassociate the way that they seem to, because haven't they been sending copyright strikes and doxing and that sort of thing? And if you feel comfortable enough to do that, if you feel comfortable enough to do all of that, how is it that you somehow still feel that you are innocent? It seems they doth protest too much.
So I take a couple months away from my YouTube channel because racism makes me angry.
Yes.
Whole statement of me, I know. No. But like, it makes me mad when I see racism. I think it's good that I don't get why they are there because that means I don't think like
yes, true.
that.
True.
But it's hard to wrap your mind around. The thing that bothers me the most is that they have created this victim complex for themselves, while at the same time belittling people of color who speak about their struggles with racism. They have said horrific things about creators of color who have made content about them. They have doxed people of color. It makes me so upset because when they are out there, they are acting as if they are the only victims. And at the same time, they will co-opt the language of Black Lives Matter or a movement. For them, it's all about image.
I agree. I have the same opinion. And to me, that speaks to their unearned white privilege. The fact that it can be about just your image and that you can just so easily co-opt a necessary and meaningful movement like that to make it something small and petty speaks to their privilege. To me, that's my opinion.
The problem I have with them is that I'm of the opinion that white people can be racist, but unlearn that. Society in general is racist. So if you are someone who is not the victim of racism, you're probably going to grow up racist to some degree.
Absolutely. And even those whose opinion is that, oh, my family didn't raise me that way, I like to point out to them, you weren't just raised by your family. You were raised by the people you interacted with, your teachers, what you watched, what media you consumed, and all of the people around you.
Exactly. And these women hear the word white privilege, and they immediately spin it into, well, we're not privileged because we're Jewish. Which
oh, God.
So they say we're Jewish, but they almost use that as a reason why no one is allowed to criticize their public display of anti-Blackness or other forms of racism.
Agreed, absolutely. And that, to me, it seems as if they just glommed on to like the first defense mechanism, the first viable defense that they could possibly imagine, to go, oh, see, I'm not racist, not it. And it's like, no, that is not That is inaccurate, darling. I don't know how to help you with that. That's not well thinking.
I really wish that they had not acted in that way because, one, I would really like for them to just fully acknowledge the deeply hurtful things that they have said with regards to people of color.
Yes.
Two, I would like for them to be able to share their experiences with being Jewish without demonizing people of color in the process of talking about being Jewish.
Right.
They're sharing those stories in a defensive way when people bring up criticism of them. And that is just so upsetting because I feel like, I, as someone who likes to learn about people who are different than me, I'm not Jewish.
Right.
I don't have a lot of experience with Jewish culture. So I would love to learn these things, but no, they keep bringing it up in this really negative context. And I just not okay with that. Because at the end of the day, I think that every person who is white, acknowledging your privilege does not mean that your life is perfect. Acknowledging your privilege does not mean that you've never been done wrong in the world. I always get such bad red flags when they cringe or like back away from conversations when people bring up their privilege. So that I just never gotten good feelings from these ladies.
No, I have to wonder just why it is that a grown adult white woman of privilege is comfortable coming after, I'm not saying underage, but like on the younger side, content creators who happen to be people of color. Why do you feel so comfortable doing that, Laura? That's really ugly. That's a problem.
Unfortunately, I feel like the best we'll ever be able to do is speculate because when you ask very direct questions of these women, and they just will pivot, they will point fingers, they will do anything to like actually engage with these questions. So there has to be like moral consequences, and they just will not acknowledge that.
That's too bad because I'm sure that they know, I would assume, being that they're human beings with at least marginally functional brains, I'm assuming here that they would understand on some level that this is going to lead to their downfall at some point. And I just have to wonder, is that the goal so that they can reinforce their victim ideology and fingers at all of us who have talked about them? You guys are all to blame now for our downfall. It's all your fault. Rather than just turning inward for 1 second and examining what some of your problematic ideas are. Why is it that you are literally willing to blow up your entire life by clinging on to a really stupid, a really problematic worldview, rather than just for a second turning inward and asking yourself, do I hold some problematic beliefs?
You know what? If they ever listen to this, I would like to say directly to them, growing from these kinds of mistakes, it's awkward, it's painful, and that's okay because growth as a human being is never an easy, comfortable process, but it's all worth it. Like for them, and this is all just my perception as an outsider of their public life, they're living their life so thoroughly online. That seems to be a very large amount of their life.
Yes.
And so for them, I think could really benefit if they just stepped away from the computer and the phone for a while and did that personal reflection, because they're never going to grow in this awkward situation with all these eyes on them because they're retreating, because they don't want people to watch this awkward process. I had to learn some lessons with like 18 and went to college and kind of got out of my small town bubble.
Yeah.
The thing was, I was not living my life 24/7 on the internet back then.
Of course.
This was easier for me to do because it wasn't like 15,000 YouTube subscribers, 1 million Instagram followers. Right. Like, grow and change as a human.
And we had that privilege, you and I, growing up, because was the internet, absolutely, but was every moment something that you had to wonder if it was TikTokable? No, not at all. She's growing up in a different world. And so I can empathize with Lillee growing up in this world that's very different from the one her mom grew up in. I can also empathize perhaps with her mom raising a daughter in a society that clearly she may have some misunderstandings about regarding internet culture, how to put yourself out there in a way that is successful, how to do things in a way that seems seamless and that doesn't appear to be suspicious or odd, and then how to interact with people even. It seems like she may have some social issues as well with the way that I've seen her speak to people on social media and in videos and podcast episodes. I can empathize with feeling like a fish out of water. What I can't empathize with is the way that they're choosing to treat people. This is editing down. Here's my thought on that subject. I have to wonder if they don't strike some toxic items on various personality trait checklists. Their behavior is very consistent with a variety of toxic qualities. If I were looking at a situation similar to theirs with characters similar to them, that would be my opinion. Of course, having not met these people and not knowing what their history is, we can only speculate based on the overwhelming evidence that comes directly from their words and their behavior. And certainly we're not discussing this to shame anybody, but understanding where somebody else is coming from is a powerful, powerful thing. And the only way that we will ever heal, whether it be personally or as a society, from mental health, personality, and conflict, and the factors that lead to it, is by discussing it. And I think we can do that ethically without overstepping and certainly without causing injury, offense, or harm to anybody else. My theory of life is radical honesty, empathy, compassion, and tactical empathy. I think these are building blocks we could all learn from and work with. Perhaps, if that is the case, acknowledging those character traits and qualities would lead them to being able to get some help. And even if they don't have a diagnosable issue, getting help might be good. I can only imagine the amount of offense that will be taken to even a minor suggestion that something might not be right with their behavior, based on their previous actions, of course. I don't think these people seem to be folks who are used to hearing true things that are also upsetting, even when those things are said in a constructive way. And to me, that's indicative of a problem, particularly when you're a public personality, influencing other people, interacting with other people. We all have to deal with uncomfortable truths now and again, and constructive criticisms. To acknowledge that does not make it easier to deal with, does not make these truths easier, but we still have to. It's called being a grown person in the real world. The Pollyanna side of me, at least, has to hope that one day these folks will do that. They will choose to integrate into the world in a positive way that benefits them and other people. At this point, it's really tough to get a gauge on what their effect actually is on people because of the many alleged instances of them using burner accounts and bot trolls. Although, speaking to people like Holt today and speaking to other creators of color, the feedback that I'm getting is that maybe the influence that they're having isn't a good one and that they might want to examine that, both for themselves and for others. Like, at this point, it seems that these people have signed up to play the victim and to essentially be the villain. While they're playing the victim, they're actually victimizing people and then just calling foul when people push back against that, which anybody who is bullied or victimized does have a right to do in whatever way they see fit. Now, a healthy, well-balanced adult would likely simply write a negative interaction off, or if they continued to feel like they were having negative experiences, let's say, with other people, that adult might try to understand where those other people whom they're interacting with are coming from, to try to come to an understanding and grow and relate to others. Rather than doing that, it seems that these two women have chosen to double down on their victim narrative and to just go ahead and out victimize other people while folding that back into their narrative of it's okay because we feel victimized. Now, that's not right. It just objectively isn't right. It's not an appropriate way to behave. It's not an adult way to behave. And I do have hope that there is some decency underneath whatever's going on here. I know it's got to be a really tough thing to look at an uncomfortable truth. It's got to be really tough to have people looking at, for instance, your daughter's account and saying, gosh, this looks a little sus. This is a little suspicious. But being an adult and just acknowledging, hey, we may have bought some followers. Yeah, maybe it was silly, but look, I really want my daughter to get out there and have this great career. Acknowledging it like that would have made you look so much more human. It would have made you somebody people could relate to. But instead, you're choosing to play the villain. And look, you can stop that at any time. You have a whole group of people here who would actually be very supportive of you. And so that's just my feeling on the matter. And I genuinely hope for the best for these women and for everybody who has to have encounters with them. And I hope for the very best for them. I genuinely do. Now back to the interview. They can get help, and they may just be in a toxic relationship. The good news is you don't have to stay in a relationship like that. If you are involved with someone in your life, whether it be a friend, family member, coworker, who is actively bringing you down, you don't have to stay in that relationship. That's what I would say to Lillee if and when she were ever ready to hear. Unfortunately, I don't think she is. You can get out of it.
Yes. I feel like when I first started looking into her story a little bit more, I felt sympathy for her before the extent in which she was embedding herself in these really awful behaviors and mindsets. There's a lot of benefit that comes from experiencing relationships of varying degrees with people outside of your family,
Yes. Yes.
And as far as we can see with what she posts on the internet, she does not seem to have a lot of that. And so I have that sympathy there, but
at the same time, yeah.
You have to make the choices to change your life or your situation if you're able to. And I don't see a reason, and she has presented no reason publicly on the internet as to why she can't change her circumstances or just change her life.
Right.
I think it's a comfort thing, because it's been her whole life.
Yes.
With these dogs and these people, it's causing problems for other people, and that's what I'm mad at.
Exactly. And the really unfortunate thing is, like you said, I think the fact that she is causing problems on purpose, it seems, for people of color, that's a huge problem. If you're living your own life and you've got your own issues to deal with, we all do. We all understand that as human beings. But when you're actively starting to come out and hurt other people and specifically prey on people who aren't white and privileged, then that is a huge problem. The sad thing here is that rather than pitting herself or allowing her mother perhaps to pit her against all of us, she could turn this into an opportunity and turn around and realize, hey, these people aren't trying to actually attack me. I might actually have some good resources and accountability partners out there if I ever did want to talk and maybe start the process of growing and learning and moving forward. I shouldn't speak for everyone else. I would definitely be willing to help her if she ever chose that route. Not hold her hand the whole way, but definitely give her some feedback and talk. But rather than allow that with any of us, she's got to pit herself against us. I don't understand that. I don't think we're all out to get her. I think we're all just noticing things that are really unfortunate and hoping that she'll change. Do you feel like there's any vitriol, that's the word they use, against her? I don't actually think there is.
Well, my time being aware of Lillee Jean, I definitely do think that there was at certain points some very cool things that were.
That's too bad.
Yeah, but the thing is that just because certain people were jerks, and I will say that they said things that okay with. They made a lot of teasing and mean comments. She uses that as a reason to not listen to anyone who has any constructive criticism.
That's not a valid reason to not engage with anybody who has any criticism, though. Criticism is how you grow. Like you said, it's not always comfortable, but constructive criticism is how you grow and change. What's the takeaway for you on this with her? What do you feel like we can take away from this?
Well, I definitely think what I've learned as someone who started a YouTube channel just so I could dive into topics that I thought weren't being discussed. Not things where it's like, her whole life is fake. You know, look at the real person behind these personas that we have online.
True.
Lillee Jean, I think the issue is that she's living so thoroughly on the internet that when she does mess up and let loose her apparently racist thoughts on things, not enough attention paid to that. And that is kind of lack of attention on those down is what allows racism to continue to work over our entire society and affect people of color on the daily basis. So it's like if we see an internet drama story, but there's racism there, we need to go after that racism immediately. We can't just push it as an afterthought.
Right.
So, like we're talking about the 1 million kind of followers on Instagram. Also, there's racism. Also, she's told us what racism is like an issue. And when one person on the internet says or does things that are racist, it just back into this racism in society, and we don't cut it off.
Agreed. I think you're right that racism isn't and shouldn't ever be considered as a secondary topic of interest. This is the main topic. Like if there were a billboard, that would be what should be on it.
I agree. Because racism does not just affect one person. If there's one person on the internet who says racist things and then they're getting attention because drama channels are covering it and more eyes are on it, that just means there's more people who are going to hear that message and have it go unchallenged. And that is very dangerous. Yeah. And that's why I made my videos the way I did. I think there were 3 of them that were specifically about racism and like performative allyship and things like that, because it's getting such a huge problem, and you know, we can't always like reach those people online. Sometimes it's hard if you can't meet face to face, and I understand that. But challenging those ideas of hers, I really just want to start larger conversation. That would be like have one voice saying things that are not acceptable, be the catalyst for a larger conversation that can potentially affect behavior change. I'm not trying to be like dramatic, but you know, just talking about racism so we can try to move towards a less racist society.
I agree. I think that's literally the takeaway of all of this. And I would just add that I think it's so unfortunate that they continue to utilize this performative victimhood just so they don't have to critically examine their own beliefs and their own privileges.
Right. Loudness is what kills me. It's okay to be wrong, but sometimes you gotta back up and just
maybe admit that you don't have all the answers as a human being. Sometimes you're incorrect about things. That's okay. We all are.
Absolutely. It's very nice to know that people are still interested in hearing these types of things, because I think it's a conversation that you can have.
Absolutely. And you're always welcome back anytime.